Hi everyone, it's Nicole Bridgen, again with Lions Quest. Today we're going to be talking about the third lesson in the unit of health and prevention. So the last time we did a video, it was on decision making and how to make good choices. We're going to expand on that. Today we're talking about responsibility. We'll be defining what responsible choices are, where you learn how to be responsible, and then what consequences can follow your choices. First, let's take a look at a quote from Anne Frank.
Parents can only give good advice or put them on the right paths, but the final forming of a person's character lies in their own hands. Anne Frank. Anne Frank, as a reminder, was a Jewish teenager who hid with her family in an attic in the Netherlands, and she was discovered by the Nazis and died in a concentration camp.
So I would love to hear from you as to what you think this quote means. What does Anne Frank mean? Let's talk about a little bit about the quote, how she says that parents can set their children on their own paths. When I think about children and the development of children, I think of a little toddler being told no or being put on timeout. So I don't know if you could remember a time that you were little and being told not to do something that was harmful or dangerous, or getting put on timeout and getting in trouble when you were writing on the wall, etc. Well, when you were that age, you also had somebody looking over your shoulder and watching everything that you did, basically every moment of your life. Now that you're 11 or 12 years old, do you recognize how much more freedoms that you have? But with those freedoms come consequences, and that also means that you are making your own choices more often than not. But there will always be consequences following your behaviors. So what does it mean exactly to be responsible? Let's take a look. I have a nice dry erase board here with some definitions, and we'll go over some examples too. So again, today we're talking about responsibility, choice, and consequences. Responsible, the definition: accountable for fulfilling a commitment to yourself and others. We're going to go through examples momentarily. Then we break down the word for responsibility. Okay, it looks responsibility. To be able to respond to one's commitments in a positive way. And then, of course, to be irresponsible is not acting responsibly. Let's think about some responsibilities that you have in your life in general for somebody your age, again, 11 or 12 years old. Some examples of responsible behaviors are being on time for things, completing assignments by a given due date, studying for a test, or completing chores. Think about some of your responsibilities. What specific chores do you have? Or what, in this time when you are at home and you're just adjusting to online school or whatever it may be, what new responsibilities do you have, and how are you adjusting to this change? So let me introduce you to a new term, ethical responsibility, which is behavior that is right or doing the right thing. It is respectful, healthy, and wise. Let me ask you a question, something to think about. Where did you learn right from wrong? You inevitably learned what is ethically responsible. Have you learned it from your parents or grandparents or your guardians? Some of us have learned it from other adults in our life, from church or other organizations that we belong to, possibly from older siblings, friends, certainly at school, teachers, and it's something that's always developing. You're constantly learning what is right from wrong as you are experiencing new things. Okay, so I'm going to use this chart to look at how our behaviors affect the outcome of a given situation. And I'm going to talk about a personal experience from when I was your age. Two experiences. So first, where I made an irresponsible decision. I was asked to babysit for a family, and I remember the couple was going to go out to, they had a big event to go to. They had asked me weeks and weeks in advance if I could babysit on a specific date. And I used to babysit all the time, and I really enjoyed it. And of course, I made a good amount of money from babysitting. So I was looking forward to this. It was a responsibility that I had taken on. Now, after I made that commitment, I was asked by my aunt to go to Nashville, and I really, really wanted to. And we were going to get back into town on the very day that I was supposed to babysit. So I thought I could work all of this out. Now, what ended up happening was it's a very, very long drive from Nashville to where I was babysitting at. And we got held up in traffic. We got, I couldn't find a gas station when we got off the highway. This was before GPS, before cell phones. And so it turned out to be, I don't know, a couple hours later that I showed up at my babysitting assignment. So, and we'll talk about outcomes as I'm writing down the behaviors that were all involved here. First of all, I overcommitted. And the outcome for that was that I was late. Because I was late, I lost that babysitting job, and that family never hired me again. I made the parents quite angry. I was disappointed in myself. And that the parents weren't able to go to their event. So. It affected me so much that I still remember to this day, many, many years later. But certainly I learned from that mistake, and I can recall other times that I had committed to work or babysit, and then made the right choice. I knew that I couldn't just cram too much into a day. And there were times, there was a specific time I remember my friend decided to have a party, but I had already committed to babysitting, and I said that I could not come to the party because I was babysitting. So my behavior there was much more responsible, where I followed through with my commitment. And then the outcomes were I made money, and then I kept a positive relationship with that family. And honestly, I was able to continue working with them because of that. I babysat for that family until I went away to college. So another behavior that we should take a look at is, so teens will have to make the decision at some point in their lives to use or not use drugs. You might have to make that decision over and over again, honestly. So let's look at the irresponsible decision of choosing to, let's say, use marijuana because your friends are using. So for behavior, we'll put what behaviors, and I want you to think through this with me. What behaviors could come from the use of marijuana? Okay, as you can see, I came up with a list of behaviors that come from the use of marijuana, including mood swings,
irritability, low energy level, reduced activity, forgetfulness, defensiveness, self-centeredness, and to neglect one's appearance. Again, some negative outcomes that could come from this include to lose positive friendships or relationships, to perform poorly in school, or to gain weight. Of course, that list can go on and on. Now, if you were to make the responsible choice and continue to avoid using marijuana, then some behaviors that could come from that, of course, would be to continue to manage your moods and to have a normal energy and activity level. And the outcomes of that would be to maintain your positive relationships and to continue to be able to control how you perform in school, etc. So I want you to continue to think about responsible behavior and ethical responsibility in that way. Between the behaviors that follow your choices and the outcomes that come from behaviors. Let me leave you with something to think about. I'm going to give you a scenario and think about it the way we did on the board with behaviors and outcomes. Okay? Student A liked her older sister's new sweater. One day while her sister was at soccer practice, student A took the sweater from her sister's dresser and tried it on. When she pulled it over her head, she heard a ripping sound. Student A saw that the neckline was torn. How did student A act irresponsibly? And what do you think student A could do to show ethical responsibility? So I'm going to leave you with that thought, and I want you to try to practice this in your life. And then think about those that are in your life that are teaching you ethical responsibility, what is right and what is wrong. And think about the choices you're making and look at the outcomes that follow. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Nicole Bridgen, and I will see you again.